Well, this is a video response to the level 1 gamer life that was created by Alloy7. And the fact is that my level 1 in my gamer life started with the Atari. The Atari 2600. It was before game systems had numbers attached. Because, there was a time when there was just the Atari. And we had the deluxe edition, the one that came with the paddles so you could play Pong. God loved Pong. But I really loved Adventure. Adventure was a game that was available for the first, when your character was just a little box. Yes, and your sword was a 8-bit arrow that you used as a sword, and no matter how you held it, you could stabby something by just running into it. A really intense system that flew along there. And I remember enjoying getting snatched up by the bat and being dragged all over the map, and having the bat snatch up the dead dragon, which was another thing that you could, if you played the game well, you could get to happen. You could force the issue. And those are little tricks I have no clue how to remember. I remember I could do the little maze just by knowing that I had to go in certain directions for so many seconds before I could close my eyes. I was so good at Adventure, but it opened up a world to me, because I was a child that loved stories, and I have to admit there was a point where I strayed away from console systems when I got my first Commodore 64. And I know I'm going to butcher the name of the title, but it was Temple of Astrai, was the game that I just could not get enough of. But it was all text. There was no real 3D or 2D attempts. It was a text-based adventure. And that opened up a world that eventually ended up me getting into role-playing games. And I don't mean role-playing games on computers. I'm talking the pen and paper tabletop style games that for decades absolutely dominated my life. I was so blissfully happy because stories were told, and I was part of those stories. And those stories were intense. Though it came much later in my life, there was a game run by a friend of mine named Turk. I have to give him a shout out. He ran a campaign for Dungeons and Dragons that was billed out exactly as it was. It was Apocalypse Now with orcs, elves, and spells. But it was basically Apocalypse Now, in D&D. So that was one of the campaigns, and I do so blissfully remember playing Traveler, which became Traveler 2600, I think. Anyway, the Traveler game, when we played that, there was an adventure also run by my buddy Turk, who, oh, wow, I remember Mark, the Mongol, sitting there at the table, is, we're all gonna die. And, my character was this very large, gun-toting Clydian warlord, which was not a standard race in the game, but I liked the Charlie Bison, the Clydian warlord from the old Levi's commercials, because he looked like a giant lizard samurai, and, I liked the idea of a giant lizard samurai, gun-toting, sword-wielding, destructomatic machine. and he let me play it, and that was, the intense stories we told each other through our role playing. Eventually, I became a GM, even though I'm the youngest of most of my friends, or most of the first generation of my friends. The guys I knew in high school, there are four guys I knew in high school that I hung with. One went to a different high school, and we kind of parted our ways. Another one, we parted our. I have two friends from high school that I used to game with in my basement. When my bedroom was in the basement, we used to come in through the big old storm doors that are on the angle of the back of the house, and we'd game. We'd start gaming Friday after school. We'd pass out sometime mid Sunday. Um, from the fact that the day and a half old pizza was exhausted, the soda was gone, and it was helping that my mom and dad were food wholesalers, so soda was cheap. We were getting it wholesale. I was getting cases and cases delivered. So, it was intense weekend long, like non-sleep fests of destroying orcs and seeing distant universes. This role playing really eliminated gaming on consoles, computers. We had the intense theater of the mind, and that was the one thing when I started getting back into video games, PC games. The actual first PC game I bought was SimCity 2000. That was the first PC game I bought when I bought a new tower with a massive 450 megabyte hard drive that I would never be able to bear. Yeah. Well, now I got games with load files, 3 times, 4, 5 times that size. But that is an aside. I got games that their save files are larger than the entirety of that hard drive. So, but I got back into PC gaming, and then, I was sticking around with a lot of the sim titles and stuff, but it really wasn't embracing me until a friend introduced me to Daggerfall and the Elder Scrolls series. And then he introduced me to my next great role-playing addiction. I could not get enough of Daggerfall. I loved the fact that you could hex edit anything into your character's possession, and bang, and we loaded the characters up at the get-go with the best gear, because if you had to answer questions to build your class. And if you answered these questions, each one of these questions would put something in you, whether it was a skill or whatnot. And we edited the file so that it would dump tons of crap into our character's possession. And it was funny that game had a way of dealing with encumbrance, that if you had too much weight on, you couldn't pick something up. But if you had too much on you already, it didn't matter how much too much was. You could still move. If you had 200 swords in your backpack, when you started the character, then, you could walk around the game with 200 swords in your backpack. Or you could make an obliterating amount of gold when you decided what ones you wanted to keep, what ones you wanted to sell, and you built the character the way you wanted it to look. But that was my first experience with having cheats and hacks in a game. I learned to dislike cheats and hacks because the fact is they're cheats, they're hacks, they're just they take away from the experience. Then I, for a while, justified the cheat of money because I just didn't want to spend my game hunting down objects to sell in town. And then when I started playing a game called Oblivion, oh dear goodness, I found out what it was like to crunch a dungeon for every living thing in it, destroy everything, pick up all the stuff, haul it into town, sell it off. And I found out that I was blissfully happy going back and forth from a dungeon, fast traveling to town, dungeon, fast traveling to town. And hey, if there was a dungeon 200 yards down the road, I was going to go 200 yards down the road, crunch that one out, and destroy everything living within it, and haul off all of their goodies and bring them into town. And my character, because of all the experience I had with all of the role-playing games, tabletop versions, where everything was an intense story, in my head I had to be able to justify a story for my character. When they were, I would play the Argonian mage, even though the Argonian was not all that powerful when it came to it. Yes, I did occasionally play my high elf mage in Oblivion because it's hard to deal with the fact that they got quite the boost, and if you chose the right aspect, they got even a bigger boost to their capacity to just beat things up with spells. But they were susceptible to different kinds of magics. That was, so I kind of did some min-maxing type gaming, but I really don't find I find it so much better, like, to use my DCUO character. I have Zephyrod Beeblebrox. And for those of you who are fans of, well, we'll just say fans of a very good set of books for those who are hitchhikers. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That character I tried to engender in DC Universe Online. And for decades I avoided online games. I was never going to play an MMO. No! Never! Every time I say never, I prove myself wrong. I was never going to get married and have children. 6 months later, I was in a relationship on my way to marriage, and she was pregnant. I was never going to play MMOs, and it may have taken 2 or 3 decades, but, I eventually found MMOs I like to play, even to the point that I'm in the beta test right now for illumANark, the game, which is for EverQuest Next, which will be the next generation of EverQuest. They are building the game and the styles in the game with the players. So the players are actually part of building the game into what it's going to become. Now, not everybody is going to completely contribute. And the fact is, I haven't contributed anything other than finding a couple of glitches, complaining about those, and, hopefully they were getting fixed. And sometimes I complained about glitches they had gotten a report on, and sometimes I was complaining about glitches they hadn't yet received. So, I'm very happy with the fact that I was involved in the development process. of that game. In fact, I'm still involved with the development process of that game. Other games I'm into nowadays, things that have really caught me up. I was really not a first-person shooter person. I like your role-playing games because you're building a character. Well, I play the hell out of Hawk, which is free on Steam. It's free to play, and that's also in development. But at least you can play it in the development, put in some input to be involved with the development of the game. There are a lot of other games I'm involved in nowadays. In fact, I've got 9 MMOs I play in for the I never will play just one anymore. I would wish that was true, that I could just find one I could focus my attention on. But there are like 6 angry ferrets at the controls. So they really can't decide what they're doing and what we have to be excited by. So I have to be excited by everything. And my life is bigger than it once was and smaller than it once was. I used to work as a professional bodyguard. Hence the lack of hair, because when you have somebody who's wanting to assail you, if they reach out for your hair, give them something to hold, they have control of your head, unless you have a low wind resistance hairstyle. But the actuality is I have very long locks, as you can see. They're just ultraviolet, and just because you can't see in that spectrum, it's not my problem. So anyway, I hope to post this as a 17-minute response to what was probably a much shorter video. So I tried to do this all in one take because I'm really not good with editing software yet. And well, as you can see, I'm still dealing with congestive heart failure, needing to be on full-time oxygen. So I hope you all have an excellent day. And this all goes out to my illuminaries and Mysterians. I hope you all have an excellent day. Peace out.